that I'm going to share with you, and this is a story by Rabbi Alan Cook. As soon as the recess bell rang, Ted ran out to find his friend Janet. He couldn't wait to show her his new trucks. He brought out those trucks and he found Janet standing by the hopscotch grid. He really wanted to play racetrack with Janet. She was talking with Betsy and Stu. "Come on, Janet," Ted cried. "Let's go play trucks." "I'd rather do hopscotch today," Janet replied. "I'm going to play with Betsy and Stu. You can join us if you want." Ted didn't even hear her invitation. He felt like his feelings had been stung by a bee. He was sad and angry. Janet was his friend. Why was she playing with Stu and Betsy instead of him? He sat in the corner of the playground for the rest of recess. When it was time to go back in, he carried in his trucks. He also had something new with him. It was small and rough-edged, but to the trained eye, it was unmistakable. Ted was carrying a grudge. The next morning, Ted arrived at school with his backpack weighing him down. It was a very, very heavy backpack. His classmates watched as he unpacked. Let's see what he unpacked from his backpack. Out came, what does he have in here? He has his homework. Out came his lunchbox. Out came a book for story time. And something else came out of his backpack. It was his grudge. It was bigger than it was yesterday. At recess, Janet came up to him. Ted didn't much feel like talking to her. He grunted answers to her rudely. "Ted, what do you have there?" Janet asked. "A grudge," Ted replied, rolling his eyes at her. "I've never held a grudge before," she said. "Is it fun?" "No, not really," Ted answered. "It's pretty heavy and it hurts a lot." Just then, Ted's grudge bit him on the finger. He picked up the grudge, stood up, and walked away. He went inside for lunch, and Stu and Betsy watched as Ted took it out of his lunchbox, and he also took out some medicine and a spoon. He took a spoonful of the medicine and fed it to that grudge. "What are you doing?" Betsy asked. "I'm nursing my grudge," Ted answered. "I don't think it's doing very well." "Why don't you just get rid of it?" Stu asked. "It doesn't seem to be making you very happy." The grudge furrowed its eyebrows at Stu. It also grunted at him. Stu thought he heard Ted growl too. By Monday, Ted's grudge was still in his backpack. And this time it was as big as the globe that his teacher had in the classroom. It was also very smelly. All the students held their noses. Everyone hold your noses. All the students held their noses as they passed by Ted's desk. "What is that smell?" Mrs. Johnson finally asked. "I think it's my grudge," said Ted sadly. "I'm pretty sure it's festering." "A festering grudge can be very serious, Ted," Mrs. Johnson said. "Do you want to talk about it?" Ted told Mrs. Johnson the whole story. Beginning with the day on the playground, he explained that he had been carrying that grudge ever since. "I can tell," said Mrs. Johnson, "that grudge of yours has become so big, it's almost like it's carrying you instead of you carrying it." She pulled out a bag from behind her desk. Here's her bag. "What's that?" Ted asked her. This bag has things in it that are much more enjoyable to carry than a grudge. Would you like to pick something from here instead of your grudge? You can hold on to hope. You can carry love. You can embrace friendship or kindness. Anything that you like in this bag, you can have, Ted. You just need to let go of that grudge. Ted slowly set that grudge down on the floor. He watched as it slowly shrank away into nothingness. Then he reached into Mrs. Johnson's bag and he pulled out friendship and gave it a big squeeze. Everyone give your friendship a big squeeze. Janet, who had been watching quietly, walked over to Ted. Ted, she said, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. You are my best friend, but there are lots of awesome people in our class. And sometimes it's more fun if we can play with all of them. Ted smiled. You're right, he said. Besides, playing with you and all of our other friends is so much nicer and safer than holding on to that grudge. This Yom Kippur, may we work on of letting go of those grudges, letting them shrink away into nothingness, and letting us pull out things like hope and kindness and love and friendship.